December 13th, 1945. Before the sun could warm the stones of Hamelin Prison, footsteps echoed toward the gallows. Women, once feared as the cruel guards of a Nazi death camp, walked slowly towards a fate the world had never witnessed. Nothing could save them now. Within minutes, the trapdoors would fall, and history would witness a reckoning the world had never seen. But what twisted journey led these women from power to the hangman's rope? This is the story of a time when brutality ignored humanity, but justice refused to stay silent. To understand this chilly morning of December, we must travel back to the final chaotic months of World War II. By 1945, Europe had become a disturbing image of devastation. Cities portrayed chaos. Millions were dead or displaced, and the collapsing Nazi regime clung desperately to power. As Allied forces advanced further into Germany, they uncovered a network of camps whose existence redefined the meaning of human brutality. The environment inside those camps was disturbing, but one camp shocked the world. It was Bergen-Belsen, the hell, the prison, and the graveyard. Bergen-Belsen was first established in 1940. At that time, it was just a prisoner of war camp. Located in northern Germany, it was simply marked by barbed wire fences, crude barracks, and scattered watchtowers. But in 1941, the camp's role was changed. Thousands of Soviets were captured, and the Nazis transferred them here. Inside the camp, the population witnessed a rapid surge, but the facilities were limited. Death began to find its way into the camp, but it was just the beginning. In 1943, things turned horrible. The SS took over and changed this camp into a concentration camp. Now, Bergen-Belsen was no longer an ordinary prisoner camp. It was a hell where humanity suffered and brutality ruled. A place where mercy died long before the humans did. It was a massive detention machine working on one principle: squeeze every drop of strength and dignity from its residents. The food was limited for the inmates. It was not sustaining life, it was just delaying death. Each day, a person received only a few slices of hard black bread, soup, and some wilted vegetables. It was less than 800 calories, far below the amount required for survival. What followed was severe malnutrition. It ate all parts of their bodies, and only hollow eyes remained. But food was not the only problem inside the camp. Clean water was almost non-existent. Water was contaminated with human and animal waste, yet the prisoners were forced to drink. It served as a welcome sign for diseases. Typhus spread across the camp. People were dying, but still no attention was given. Some were in terrible pain, waiting for death to arrive faster. Emaciated prisoners were lying beside the unburied dead. The air itself seemed poisoned with despair. On April 15, 1945, a unit of the British Army advanced towards the gates of Bergen-Belsen. The moment jeeps and military trucks entered through the gates, the scene in front of them was one of the most haunting images of World War II. The air inside was thick with the stench of death. Across the camp, thousands of bodies lay scattered on the ground, many of which were already decomposed. The smell of smoke, garbage, human waste, and dead bodies assaulted every sense. Thousands of prisoners were still alive, but they were nothing except weak skeletons, sunken eyes, stretched skin, and trembling bodies. It did not look like a concentration camp. It looked like a graveyard with walls. The camp was a vision of organized horror that left no doubt about the depth of Nazi brutality. Later, reports by British Army medical officers suggested that few of the prisoners were too weak to swallow solid food, and more than 500 people died every day inside the camp. The British understood the assignment and set up temporary hospitals to help the survivors. Food, clean water, and medicine were brought in, but it was too late. Then the British focused on finding those responsible for these crimes against humanity. The guards and officers were separated and arrested on the spot. But it was not like anything expected. Among the arrested officers, female guards were prominent figures responsible for patrolling fences, overseeing labor, and enforcing discipline with whips, sticks, and brutal punishments. Their faces were expressionless, as if nothing had happened. Some of them were barely out of their teens, but their brutalities were nothing like a teenager. This is how they were trained in Ravensbrück, the SS's largest training camp for female guards. They were trained how to wield authority, master prisoner control procedures, and embrace the regime's ideology of racial purification. Inside camp, several female guards not only followed orders, but went beyond them, using brutality as a way to advocate their dominance. These women were not shadows in the background. They were active participants in a machinery of death. Among these women, 3 stand out as the cruelest female guards inside the camp. Irma Grazer was the most infamous of them. She was the beautiful beast with an icy smile, blonde hair and sharp eyes. Grace was born in 1923 in Pomerania. Growing up in a farming family, her childhood was spent in the fields doing manual labor. When she was 14, her mother committed suicide, leaving a deep void in her life. When the war began, she showed interest in joining the Nazi youth organization. She became a guard at Ravensbrück at the age of 19. After that, she was transferred to Auschwitz, where she became famous for her brutality against prisoners. In 1945, she was transferred to Bergen-Belsen as a senior female guard. She used to carry a pistol and a leather whip, and punished prisoners for smaller mistakes like a disrespectful glance, walking too slowly, or even dropping a slice of bread. Then there was Elisabeth Volkenrath, a woman of cold discipline and absolute loyalty to the SS. She was the chief female officer who enforced orders with unyielding brutality. In one case, she forced a survivor to stand in freezing temperatures for several hours just to maintain discipline. Another name that emerged on the list of brutal female guards was Johanna Bormann, the woman with the dogs. She would often set trained German shepherds upon the weak and starving prisoners and would watch as entertainment. The British captured all these women along with other officers, and then they were transferred to a high-security facility to face the biggest war crime trial of World War II. In September 1945, the world turned its eyes to the Belsen trial. A British military court assembled a panel of judges and prosecutors determined to expose the atrocities that words could barely contain. The proceedings were meticulous, filmed and documented so that no one could later deny the truth. Survivors took the stand and spoke of the brutalities of female guards in Bergen-Belsen. After weeks of hearing, the court delivered its verdict. 11 of the accused, including Irma Grazer, Elisabeth Volkenrath, and Johanna Bormann, were sentenced to death by hanging. The court declared that mercy had no place for these merciless women. And then came the morning of December 13th, when the gallows at Hamelin were standing silent and ready to enforce justice. Doors creaked open. Irma Grazer, along with Elisabeth and Johanna, came forward. One by one, they mounted the wooden steps to meet their fate. Albert Pierpoint, England's most experienced executioner, was on duty that day. The female guards, who were once feared for their brutality, fell silently into history. Justice was delivered. The gallows at Hamelin have long been dismantled, but the shadow of that cold December morning remains. The grounds of Bergen-Belsen are marked by memorial stones and silent graves. The execution of Bergen-Belsen guards was not about revenge. It was proof that terrible crimes cannot stay hidden forever. These women chose cruelty, and the world made sure their actions would not be forgotten. Their fate stands as a silent reminder. When human life is treated with such hate, justice will eventually arrive, firm and unstoppable. Did this chilling execution story of World War II shock you? Share your reaction in the comments section. Also, share and subscribe for more chilling stories.